All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to yet another episode of the Facts Over Feelings podcast. I'm joined once again by my co-host over here, Trevor Kaufman, for episode number 74. And Trevor, we got, I want to say, just in my opinion, we have a nice slate for today. We got a lot of NFL
We
and
do.
NBA. We were going to talk about college basketball, but with the NBA trade deadline looming large tomorrow, as of the filming of this episode, we don't know if we have time, so we'll talk about them that next week. But we have NFL and NBA to get to. And Trevor, to start off on some football, it feels like to me, Trevor, I haven't it feels like it's been a while since I've watched some football because there wasn't any this past weekend, Trevor. But
hmm
the Super Bowl is just around the corner, and man, I just want to say I did not expect this at all. I kind of still can't believe that the Cincinnati Bengals could win the Super Bowl. Like it just,
I know.
I don't know. I almost can't believe it. But yet here they are. The Bengals are going to LA to play the Rams, and you normally you'd say this is an advantage for the Rams, Trevor, playing at home, but I don't know. I don't know this time around. The Rams Stadium tends to be half filled with away teams fans, so we'll see how that goes. But Trevor, I want to get your thoughts on this game. Who you think's going to win? Can the Bengals really beat the Rams?
They definitely can, but they won't. I'm just going to come out right away and say it. The Rams are
Okay.
winning the Super Bowl. Their defensive line will be the difference. I think the Rams' defensive line is going to feast on a bad Cincinnati offensive line. Aaron Donald's had a great playoffs. We've seen Von Miller make some timely plays. Leonard Floyd, their front seven is dominant, and I believe that is what will be the difference in this football game. But I do want to talk about the Cincinnati Bengals in this respect. What just an incredible underdog story this is. And I don't think people
Seriously.
are talking about this enough. The Cincinnati Bengals were projected to finish last in their division by almost everybody. I think it was like pretty widely expected that the Bengals were going to finish last. This was supposed to be a 4 or 5, maybe 6 win football team. To start the year, they had the same Super Bowl odds, or the same odds to win the Super Bowl as teams like the Detroit Lions and the New York Jets, which I think is just absolutely astounding.
It is
I
crazy.
think you have to give I think you have to give Joe Burrow all the credit in the world. He has absolutely revolutionized this franchise. It's an unbelievable underdog story. I was stunned that they came back and beat Kansas City last week. I would have been 2 for 2 in my predictions, but Patrick Mahomes decided to forget how to play football. But give the Bengals a lot of credit. They made adjustments in that game. They've kind of just found a way all postseason long. All season long. They've won games that they're
Yeah.
not supposed to win, and they're now 1 win away from a world title. I've really respected their fan base. I think they have a great set of fans. I saw at their pep rally that they had 30,000, people
Good
filling
for
the
them.
stadium for their pep rally.
Mm.
I think they have a great young core going forward on the offensive side, and they need to rebuild that O line and build that defense a little bit. But look, this team's going to be good now for the next 10 years, and it's not good for Ryan's Cleveland Browns because the Cincinnati Bengals are here to stay. They have the quarterback, they have the receiver, they have the running back, they have defensive playmakers, but they need an O line. And once they get that O line, this team is going to be very, very tough to beat. Finally, I do think the Rams are going to win this game, as I've already mentioned. This is Matthew
Sure.
Stafford's time. He's waited 13 years for this game. The Rams have the big playmakers that they need to win this football game. They have the better defense, and I ultimately think they have the better coach. And when you give Sean McVay 2 weeks to prepare, he's going to find ways to expose your defense, and he's going
Yeah.
to find ways to, he's going to frustrate you, is what I'm trying to say.
Yep.
So I think the Rams are going to win this football game. I got them winning 26-20.
Okay. So I mean, look, for all your talk about the Rams, Trevor, I mean, you still think it's going to be a really close game, right? I mean, this is
It
going to
is.
be a
It's the Super Bowl.
yeah,
It's the Super Bowl at the end of the day, and Joe
sure.
Burrow's playing for the Bengals, and you can never count that man out. It's Joe Montana-esque the way he plays.
Trevor, this is really interesting how this has gone because I have a couple of things I want to say. So first off, the Bengals team, they remind me of how I felt about the Suns before their playoff run last year. Like in
Yeah,
all seriousness, a young team who I guess you're missing that Chris Paul-esque kind of guy, but you get my point. Like they start playing
right.
well, they start winning the regular season. You're like, man, they feel like pretenders to me. They don't have that
hmm
experience, right? Then they make the playoffs, and they win one series, they win one game, then they win another game, and you're like, I still don't really believe in them. At least that was me. was like, the Suns are going to lose to the Clippers. Oh, they'll have a hard time with the Nuggets. They kept winning series after series. Same with the Bengals. I was like, look, I thought that we both thought they'd beat the Raiders, Trevor. I thought that they could
I
beat
agree
the
with
Titans,
that.
but when they got to the Chiefs, I was like, all right, here's where the party ends. Here's where it all comes
That's what
crashing
I
down
thought.
for the Bengals. And in all seriousness, I thought I was so right after that first half, Trevor. It was 21-3 at one point. It was 21-10 actually, final play of the first half, and the Chiefs couldn't get into the end zone at the 1 yard line as time expired at the end of the first half. That changed the game.
That did change the game.
It definitely did because right. I mean, they would have been up 28-10. It went to OT, so that was the difference.
And Kansas City would have gotten the ball to start the second. They did get the ball to start the second half.
Yeah, but still, the momentum would have been on their side. Point being, like everything was looking like the Bengals were gone, and they credit to them. I mean, wow. I mean, not many teams who are the underdog away, down by double digits at halftime, are able to come back and win a game like that. So, credit to them. And I do want to say, I mean, they only gave up 1 sack to the Chiefs. I can't tell if that's more just bad personnel or bad play by the Chiefs defense or good offensive, good O-line player, decent O-line play, and really good pocket awareness by Joe Burrow. Probably all of those things, a combination of all those things. But my point is they keep overcoming obstacle after obstacle, and they've made the Super Bowl now, Trevor. And just like it was with the Suns for me, I'm like, man, I almost feel obligated to pick the Bengals to win. But
right.
That's how I felt with the Suns. But really, I don't think that they can beat. I mean, unless Stafford comes out and is just bad Stafford. Stafford's very inconsistent, right? We've talked about this throughout the season.
Yep.
He's had up months and down months, right? Up games and down games. If he comes out super rusty, super, shaky, maybe I'll be wrong. But I can't bet against the Rams, Trevor. I mean, look, the lines are the difference here. The O-line from the Rams is better. The D-line from the Rams is way better. I mean, their front seven is terrifying. They have the big names. They have the secondary as well. Obviously, they have the best secondary player in this game in Jalen Ramsey. They have the best defensive, probably the best overall player in Aaron Donald in this game. I mean, they have the best receiver. I don't know, Trevor. They just have so much talent. They've been playing so well. I think they have the better coach. Crazy things can happen. The Bengals already beat Mahomes and Andy Reid. So again, anything can happen. But I don't know how you bet against the Rams in this one, Trevor. I have a hard time doing it. So I don't want to be too redundant and agree with you, but I do think the Rams will win this. I really do. I think it'll be. I don't want to copy your score, so I actually think it'll be a little higher scoring. Actually, I'm gonna go 30. I'll go 34-24. Yeah, I'll go 34-24. I think the Rams put them away in the end. I think they score one more time late in the game to close it out. But I think it'll be a good game. I just don't think that the Bengals can keep up with the two lines being worse than the Rams.
Agreed. I definitely think the Rams will have a big advantage at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
You could probably say that their playmakers are a push. If you talk about the receivers and running backs, it's probably equal, I would say, on both sides with the Rams, Cooper Kupp, but Jamar Chase as well. And final point I want to make about this game is going to be the home field. I don't think it's going to be that big of an advantage for the Rams. I don't. Yeah. They've never had a big home field advantage. I think Cincinnati's going to travel well, although the prices for these tickets were ridiculous.
Yes,
$40,000?
Unbelievable.
$40,000 for like lower level tickets, which is just astounding. But regardless, I think this is going to be a very even home field. And you're right. Ryan, you made a good point. I think it's going to come down to who wins the line of scrimmage, and I think the Rams have the better of the two fronts. They have the better O-line versus Cincinnati's defensive line, and they have a way better defensive line versus Cincinnati's offensive line.
Yep.
And I think at the end of the day, that is what's going to control this football game. With that being said, Ryan, we're going to probably, unless you have any final thoughts, we're probably going to, we're going to talk one more thing.
Yes.
We're going to stay with the NFL for a little bit. And this is very personal to me because this is all of a sudden blown up in the last 24 hours since we filmed this podcast.
It doesn't make sense to me, Trevor.
I'll try and make sense of it. I watched Colin Cowherd try and make sense of it. I think he has some good points.
Okay.
So Kyler Murray, all of a sudden in the last 24 hours, has deleted all of his pictures related to the Arizona Cardinals. He has unfollowed the team on Instagram. And that's all we know. He's still following teammates. There is no reports of him being traded. All we have, Ryan, is this social media. I don't even know what the word is. Just social media cleanse, I guess you
Yeah,
could call it.
yeah, blackout. I don't know. He just like
Yeah,
he
blackout.
yeah,
So we've heard nothing from Kyler. We've heard nothing from the Arizona Cardinals.
sure.
People think, people think Kyler's out for sure. He's gone. People think this is just a negotiation tactic. Kyler has that 5th-year option on his contract. He wants to get a big deal. He probably doesn't want to be franchise tagged like Dak Prescott was. But I'm going to hand it over to you, Ryan. What do you think? Obviously, this is pure
Of
speculation, but what do you
course.
think is going on here?
Well, here's the thing, Trevor. Like, I'm gonna be honest. Like, I feel like when we see this happen, and I can't point to a specific example, but when we see this with other athletes, and I think it's happened before, or at least they delete some stuff, they unfollow some people. I feel like a lot of it is reading too much into stuff. In my opinion, I'm sure it's being overblown. I'm sure most likely, a trade's not imminent. Most likely, he's not requesting a trade or demanding that he be moved. But the reality is this: like, you still have to be concerned, right? Because, like, it'd be like, look, any franchise quarterback, like, if Baker Mayfield's he had a bad year, right? He's not great. But if I woke up tomorrow morning and Baker Mayfield had unfollowed all of Cleveland sports, and everyone related to the team, yeah, I'd be worried. Like, it's just, I think there definitely is cause for concern, but we don't know a lot. We can't. I don't want to speculate too much, other than to say, like, it's. I don't know. It's very strange because Cliff Kingsbury, it's been well documented. A lot of Arizona Cardinals fans aren't big fans of him. I also know that there have been internal discussions with Kingsbury and the front office. They don't always see eye to eye or agree. They want to run the ball, pound the ball more. Kingsbury wants to be more pass heavy. I don't know if Kyler's also been in on those discussions and maybe he's reached a conclusion, with the front office I mean, that's possible, right? I mean, maybe he's just like, maybe there's just some irreconcilable differences somehow, but I don't really see how that would happen so quickly. For me, at the end of the day, most likely it's nothing. But if he does get traded, Trevor, if this is kind of a sign of that to come, it'd be really interesting to see where he went, because we've talked about it off the air. I mean, if he got traded, he'd get traded for another top end quarterback, or at least a solid quarterback plus a plethora of picks or other players. Green Bay, right? I mean, that's always a spot, even San Fran. I mean, I don't know. I mean, right? I mean, there's a couple other spots would be quite interesting. Pittsburgh, I don't know. I mean, it'd be really interesting to see what would happen, but I don't want to speculate too much. I don't know a lot about it. I want to hear what you have to say because, to me, it feels a little overblown, but at the same time, like, you definitely have to be a little worried because everyone's being very quiet about it, Trevor. Like, everyone around the team, there's absolutely nothing about it, at least from what I could see.
Look, this is just another example of another young star who lives in the age of social media. And this is how guys in this generation pressure teams to get money. They use social media, and social media is a very powerful tool for many reasons. It has a lot of reach. It can blow up very fast. And in Kyler Murray's case, now there's a ton of speculation. I mean, every big time morning sports show is talking about this right now. And I think it's putting a lot of pressure on the Arizona Cardinals front office to re-sign him. And here's my stance on this. Kyler Murray, it goes both ways, right? Kyler Murray has improved as a player over his first 3 years.
Sure.
The Cardinals have improved as a team over these last 3 years. But it's a double-edged sword, right? Because the Cardinals have completely revamped this roster and have designed this offense to work for a guy like Kyler Murray, right? This is a very specific offense where it can work for very few quarterbacks. It can probably work for Russell. It can work for Kyler, maybe Lamar, but it's a very specific offense. And that's why Cliff Kingsbury was brought in, was to design an offense around Kyler Murray. So if I'm Kyler, what do I have to complain about? I've completely fumbled the last 2 seasons down the stretch. I played I want to cuss, but a horrendous playoff game on national TV. And now you're being a baby and deleting all your stuff on social media because you want an extension. And he is eligible for an extension. It's been 3 years and he's put up some good numbers and he's had some really nice moments. But I want to see a 4th year before I give you a big deal, because I need to see you finish a season and I need to see you win a playoff game. Because what has Kyler Murray accomplished that any other average quarterback hasn't accomplished, right? This guy's been to the playoffs once, gets bounced by the NFC winners, but still gets bounced in an embarrassing way.
I mean, yeah, it wasn't close.
It wasn't close.
Yeah.
He's completely collapsed 2 seasons in a row, same as the head coach. So for me, what more does he want? Like, I'm just confused as to what the motivation is. And where are you going to go that's better than Arizona? I mean, there's a few places, but where are you going to go? Where are you going to go that has a place with an all-pro running back and an all-pro receiver and, you know, a good offensive line and a good defense and good weapons? I just don't understand this by Kyler Murray. And to me, it says a lot about his mental, just like mental
His mental
toughness
state
in general,
Yeah.
right? Right. This is the first time in his entire football career, I read this, that he's had to face adversity. This is the first time people have criticized him. You know, in Texas, he won 3 state titles, never lost a game or never lost a state title. In college, 1 year at Oklahoma, you know, has a great college year, gets drafted #1 overall. First year, he looks good. Second year, he takes a big step, but, you know, okay, the roster was a little weak. He kind of fell, you know, they fell short at the end of the season. But this year, this is going to be the year where Kyler takes a big step, and it looked like it. But then he started to revert. You know, he started heading the wrong direction. And now there's some criticism. Now there's some questioning of, is this the guy?
Yeah.
And why are you going to respond by deleting all your social media posts? Be a man. Go to Steve Keim, go to Michael Bidwell, and go, I want a contract extension. You guys need me. I want to get a deal. And why do you have to be petty and delete all your social media? That's what I don't like.
So
I don't appreciate that. We've tailored this team to work for him, and he's come up short just as much as Cliff Kingsbury has, and he has to deal with this adversity. And right now, he's not dealing with it very well.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring up adversity because, you know, like, I don't want to keep bringing this back to my Browns, but it's the easiest way for me to relate to it. So, you know, we all know Baker Mayfield had a really tough year this year, right? He was injured. You know, you can make the excuses you want. He was brutally criticized by not only just the national media, but
a lot of people,
the Cleveland media and the Cleveland fans, right? And at the end of the season, you know, he says he's going to take time off from social media, right? He says he's going to take a break. You know, I don't know. There's a big difference between someone doing that, right, taking a break, versus someone like Kyler just deleting everything, right? We're related to the team, you know, related to everything they've been through, right? Like, it's just interesting to me, right? Like, Baker, you know, might have at one point been viewed as immature, right? But looking at him now, like, I think he's handling the adversity pretty well. He's just ignoring everything, left everything up. You know, he's still a big team guy and everything, but, you know, he just left. He left social media because, right, he didn't want to hear the criticism anymore. And, you know, I don't know. I thought it was interesting that you brought up that he just, you know, he deleted everything and he's just, you know, not handling adversity very well because he's never had to handle it before, right? At least, you know, on a big stage, on a high level.
Right.
So, you know, I thought that was interesting. It's just like, you know, it feels like they're kind of almost in two different places. Like, is Kyler really trying to send that big of a message to the Cardinals? Like, really? Like, and you bring up a point of, like, where could he go that's that much better? Like, Tampa? Like, sure, he could go to Tampa Bay, I guess. But, like, are you being that picky, right? Like, are you being that picky? I don't know. It's like, and also for him to be that picky, Trevor, and have never won a playoff game, you know, like, right? Like, he's doing all this. And, like, sure, he was an MVP candidate at a certain point in a couple of seasons back to back here. But, you know, at a certain point in the season, but let's be honest, he faded 2 seasons in a row, Trevor. He faded even harder this year than last. And that's concerning. And so, like, Kyler might think he's in a position of leverage, right? Like, give me that contract, give me what I want. But the Cardinals front office can be like, hold on a second. You know, we gave you all this. We went to win now. We got J.J. Watt. We got DeAndre Hopkins. We got, you know, Rodney Hudson. We got James Conner. All these win now pieces. And you went out and lost. You got blown out in the first round of the playoffs. I mean, so I don't know. It's just interesting. Like, you know, there's 2 sides to every coin. The Cardinals aren't without a position of, like, some leverage here, right? Like, Kyler doesn't hold all the cards. And so it's really interesting to me that he's, like, trying to play some sort of game with the organization. That, like, as a fan, that has to bother you, right? Like, that has to annoy you a little bit.
It does, because I'm confused, like, what he doesn't feel like he's getting that he wants. I just don't know what he wants.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess he wants a contract extension, but his on-field play right now, maybe this is just recency bias, I just don't know if he's worth a huge deal. I need to see him finish a year. I need to see him win a playoff game.
Yeah, because it's clear he's not on that top level, right? Like,
he's not. And look, you don't have to be on that top level to get big money, right? Because there's a lot of mid average quarterbacks that get a lot of money, right? Garoppolo, Kirk Cousins, those guys. But I think for Kyler, like I need to see a little bit more. I just need to see him and Cliff finish a season. I just don't know why that's been so tricky for this team. We have the pieces to win, and it showed. We were 10-2 after 12 games. We were the undisputed favorites, or I shouldn't say the undisputed favorites, but we were the number one seed in the NFC. And then everything goes to crap. You lose 5 of your last 6 games. So I just don't understand what Kyler's trying to do here. And if he's trying to force a trade, if I'm a Cardinals guy, if I'm Steve Keim, I'm not trading Kyler for anybody except maybe Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, or like picking up Deshaun. Like, there's very few quarterbacks I would rather.
Like, would you even trade him for Dak, Trevor? Like, would you even trade him for Dak Prescott?
I don't know. Like, I think I think they do. I think there's different. Dak does certain things better than Kyler, but Kyler also has more, I would say, just raw talent than Dak Prescott. So I just don't. Yeah. This is just so weird. It's hard to explain because we don't know anything as well. This is all just speculating on what Kyler wants or what Kyler's doing.
Yeah, and I'm sorry. We'll wrap this up in a minute, but I'm sorry if you had mentioned it before. But what did Cowherd say on this? What did he try to? How did he try to like break this down?
So this is what Cowherd said. Cowherd, I'll give him some credit because he actually kind of called this. He goes,
sure.
Right after the Cardinals-Rams game, he goes, why didn't Kyler run? Right? This makes Kyler special is his ability to run. And Cowherd goes, Kyler didn't run much in that playoff game. He goes, maybe he's saving his body. Maybe he's playing for a contract. And Colin kind of said that after the playoff game.
Bad.
And all of a sudden he goes, it all makes sense now. Kyler wants a contract and he's played 3 years. So he's eligible for an extension. He has the 4th year, and then the Cardinals have that 5th-year team option.
Yeah.
So I think Cowherd also said this. He goes, this is how people in this day and age deal with, when they want something, they go to social media because social media has a lot of power and a lot of leverage. And that was basically his message. And I agree with him on that. And I don't think Kyler's forcing a trade. I think this is a negotiation tactic. I think Kyler wants a deal, but he's taken it pretty far. He unfollowed the team on Instagram, which is a little unprecedented, I would say. I don't even know if Dak did that when he was trying to get a deal with the Cowboys, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a weird situation. We'll definitely keep an eye on it, Trevor. I mean, we'll see if anything comes of it. I mean, I think free agency, Trevor, is in like a month and a half.
Like a month, right?
Yeah, a month and a half. So we'll see around that time if it's any news. I'm sure there would be. If he were to want something, it would come out around then. But we'll see, Trevor. If anything comes with the next couple of weeks, we'll definitely talk about it. But it's definitely a weird situation. So we will we'll just sit and see. But it must be frustrating for Cardinals fans such as yourself. But Trevor, I think we will move on from this. I think we've covered it pretty well. And we'll move on to the NBA, Trevor. Now, we're filming this podcast the day before the trade deadline. So there will be probably a bunch more trades after this podcast is filmed. Because typically I'd say, Trevor, there are maybe 6 to 10 trades on trade deadline day, I would say. I mean, anywhere from in that range. So there's going to be a good amount of deals tomorrow on deadline day. But there are still a handful of deals, pretty big deals, Trevor, that went down the last few days that we wanted to talk about. And, I wanted to start off by talking about, and we can go quick through some of these, take our time on others if we want. I want to start off by talking about the one that happened almost a week ago, Trevor. And that's the Trailblazers really giving the first indication that they're, I guess, resetting and getting a bunch of cap space for free agency this summer. And they traded Norman Powell and Robert Covington to the Clippers for Eric Bledsoe, Keon Johnson, and a second rounder. And, I'm just going to say, I mean, it's clear that the Clippers win this deal now. I mean, we'll see who Portland signs with all this cap space. But, I mean, wow, did they get Norman Powell and Robert Covington for really cheap? Keon Johnson's a raw young guy, I guess. But, I mean, man, they're gonna waive Bledsoe. So, like, they got second in Keon Johnson for those two guys. And let me just say, Trevor, and I know you'll say this as well, but the Clippers are scary with Powell and Covington in that rotation, even without Kawhi. If they get Paul George back, that's still a really scary team because that team took you guys to 6 games, Trevor, and that's without Powell and Covington. So,
right,
and I think Ibaka wasn't healthy either. So having those three guys, having those 3 guys back with Paul George, even without Kawhi, would still be pretty scary. And Kawhi there too. I mean, that they might be one of the best. They might be the best team in the
Yeah.
West, or one of the best teams in the West, with those guys all healthy. So, I like this deal for them. Yeah, I don't think there's too much to say. Two guys who can shoot and defend, especially Covington can defend pretty well. Powell is more of a scorer than Covington, but they can both hit the three pretty reliably. Yeah, I mean, I like it. And Powell's under control for 4 more years. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on it, Trevor, but go ahead.
I'll come around and say this, and Suns fans might not like to hear it, but if the Clippers are healthy with Kawhi and Paul George, they're the best team in the NBA. And I don't think there's any
better than the Warriors.
Better, easily. I just don't think there's any disputing it. I think the Suns are better than the Warriors right now, anyways.
Okay.
But the Clippers are the best team in the NBA after this trade if they get Kawhi and PG back. I just think about the wing players that they have: Marcus Morris, Kawhi, Paul George, Norman Powell, Covington, Luke Kennard. I mean, all those guys can either drill threes, play elite defense, or both. And I just think that's such a weapon to have in the NBA. They have their ball handler in Reggie Jackson. They have some size in Zubats and Serge Ibaka when he's healthy. I just don't see a weakness on this team. I don't know if you do, Ryan. And for the Blazers, I don't hate this deal. They've come out and said it. Look, we're going to try and reload in the offseason. And I think that's the right thing to do, because the team that they put together for these last couple of years wasn't good enough. I mean, it got them into the playoffs, maybe a playoff series win, but it wasn't good enough to win a title. And if they really want to keep Dame, while Dame still has a few years left in his prime, they're going to need to reload this offseason. We'll see who they can get. But look, they're going to have a lot of cap space. They've dumped a couple other guys as well. We'll talk about that in another trade. So I think for Portland, this deal makes sense if they can make the cap space in the free agency period work. But look, for the Clippers, this is clearly a win now move. They're scary. And the fact that I might have to play them first round because they're so beat up and they're hanging around in the play-in area scares the crap out of me, Ryan. I'm not going to lie to you. I really think this Clippers team is elite when healthy, even without Kawhi Leonard. And they just get Paul George back, which they will get Paul George back at some point.
Yep.
This is still a really good this is a basketball team that will push anybody in the Western Conference to the brink, Warriors, Suns included. So that's all I got to say about that.
Yeah, I mean, real quick, I don't have much else to add on it other than they're a really good team. Adding these two guys definitely makes them scarier. And they did it for really cheap. You asked me if they have any weaknesses, and I'm not gonna get too picky here, but if I had to choose a weakness, it's that they don't really have that good of a big man. I mean, I guess they have Zubac, but
right, that's fair.
I mean, he's fine. But look, that's literally their only hole. And for that to be your hole, not having a center who can really score very much or isn't a great defender. That's a pretty small hole to have, especially when you have two all NBA defenders in Paul George and Kawhi. Covering for them. So, exactly. That kind of makes up for it. But look, this definitely makes them scarier. There's no doubt about it. And Portland needs to do something in the offseason, or else this is just straight tanking. And I feel bad for Damian Lillard. But Trevor, we can move on to the next trade. And, it's related to my team. And actually, Trevor,
talk about this one.
This is great because, as soon as this podcast is over, I'm going to go watch Caris LeVert's debut, Trevor. The Indiana Pacers traded Caris LeVert and a second rounder to the Cavaliers for Ricky Rubio, a first rounder and a second rounder. So, Rubio and a first basically, and swapping a couple second rounders. And I'll just say this, Trevor. This is exactly what we needed. Look, what I thought going into the deadline is the Cavaliers, and you watched them the other day, Trevor, so you kind of got this a little bit. The Cavaliers without Darius Garland need another guy who can create his own
generate
shot,
offense,
a playmaker. We didn't have that with Rubio going down. He was our second playmaker, our ball handler, our creator, whatever you want to call it. We can't score when Garland's not on the floor, at least reliably, without K-Love getting hot, right? Or Chetty Osman getting hot from three. And so LeVert is exactly what we need, a 6'7" guy who can, score, create his own shot, averages 4.5 assists, can score anywhere on the floor, really, Trevor. And I really, really like this move. He's 26, I think, 26 or 27 at oldest. And there's rumors that the Cavs want to extend him already. So, hopefully it works out. We keep him long-term. But he's coming off the bench for now. I think eventually he'll start, Trevor, but I think it's just great to see us go out and be proactive and get another a guy who can, get to the bucket and score pretty much at will. So, I love this. The only other thing that I think the Cavs need to get tomorrow is one more shooter. because LeVert's not, a great 3-point shooter. But, I really like this move. Didn't have to give up any players in the current roster because Rubio, tore his ACL, obviously. And, give up a first that's going to be in the 20s, So, I'm not really too mad about it. I think it was pretty cheap to get a guy like LeVert. And I think that getting a good, maybe even very good score was definitely worth that price.
Yeah, I think you covered this deal really well from the Cleveland perspective. I definitely think the Cavaliers got exactly what they were looking for. I didn't think they were going to get a guy like Karis LeVert. I just assumed that Indiana would want a 26-year-old playmaker in his prime. I guess not, apparently. Yeah. But I guess now, after seeing what Indiana is doing, they're clearly rebuilding. They're trying to get younger. They're trying to get draft capital. And I don't hate that they got rid of LeVert because they just brought in Tyrese Halliburton and Buddy Hield. So I think they've been able to reload at guard. They're going to have a lot of cap space. They're going to have a lot of draft capital. So I don't hate this deal for the Pacers long-term either. I know Karis LeVert's easily the biggest name, right? He's the best player in this individual deal. But I do think the Pacers are going to come out okay out of this. And for the Cavs, real quick, Ryan, you already covered it. This is an excellent deal. I watched your game the other night. You guys were a little bit colder than usual, but you definitely you just need a bucket getter. I say it all the time on this podcast. You need a guy who can just create his own shot. And you need at least two guys who can do that if you want to be a really, really good contender in the NBA. And you guys got your second guy in Karis LeVert. And I'm sure he'll work his way up to the starting lineup at some point. But this was a great deal for Cleveland. And you didn't have to give up all that much. You gave up one first-round pick, which, as you mentioned, is going to be in the 20s, which at that point it's a toss-up if it's even
it's a dart throw.
It's the players. Exactly. It's a dart throw. So great business by the Cavs. I don't hate the trade for the Pacers. I know people are going to get caught up in, that their team sucks now, but they're rebuilding for the future. And I don't hate that for them. They could have done a little bit better. I like their other deal with Sacramento better, obviously.
Yes, we'll talk about that in just a second.
For this deal, the Cavs definitely got the better end of it. And Cleveland, look, I said it already on this podcast. Cleveland is not going to be an easy out in the playoffs. I know we can get caught up in, well, they're young, they have no playoff experience. Screw all that.
We've heard that story before.
If you're better at what you do, and if you play as a team, you can beat anybody. And I think Cleveland plays as a team, and they got a guy that can create his own shot. And I think this is going to be a very, very beneficial trade for them.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you complimenting my team, Trevor, my Cavaliers. And look, I want to say, because I only covered it from the Cavs perspective, I just want to agree with you real quick. Like the Pacers, look, they did fine. Like when you take into account their other trade, it makes sense. They expedited their rebuild really quickly. How are they even really going to fully rebuild? I don't even think so, right? Because you got Duarte and Halliburton as your two guards for the future for the next 5 years. That's a nice backcourt. And then you also have Miles Turner, who now wants to stay with those two guards. That's a nice 3-player core that you want to build around. And now they have multiple firsts, multiple seconds in this year, and I think another year. So they're going to be quite nice. And they have Brogdon still. I don't know if they'll trade him, but point being, they have nice players. Like they're not going to fully tank. So credit to them for really, flipping the switch on this rebuild and really doing it really quickly. So, this trade was fine when you consider the Halliburton deal. LeVert was just going to take buckets from Halliburton and Duarte. So, you want to get your young guys more looks. But Trevor, no, seriously, yeah. But look, we can move on to talk about, and look, we'll talk about the other Pacers trade real quick because we were just on Indiana. This one came out of left field, Trevor. This one was Tuesday afternoon, and I don't think either of us really expected something like this to happen. This was kind of, I thought it was fake for a second. I thought like, no way, this is like a fake report. I almost didn't believe it. It was unbelievable, right? So we had the Pacers giving up Sabonis, Jeremy Lamb, and Justin Holiday for Tristan Thompson, who's going to get bought out, Tyrese Halliburton, and Buddy Hield. And it's as clear as day, Trevor, to me, who won this. The Pacers won this, definitely. Like I said, they flipped the switch on their rebuild. They expedited it really quickly, getting a guy like Halliburton and Buddy Hield, who is a near elite 3-point shooter. The guy can't defend very well, but he's a great 3-point shooter. He's pretty young at 26 years old.
Very true.
He'll be a nice piece there if they don't decide to trade him before tomorrow's deadline. And Halliburton is the star of this deal. 21-year-old guard who averages, I think, like 7 assists and, shoots over 41% from 3. On like pretty heavy volume. The guy is a sharp shooter. And he's just a great young player. I know Kings fans are shocked. They're angry that they traded him. The Pacers won this deal. They got the best young player. He's going to be the best player in a couple of years from this trade. I really love it for Indiana. I really do. Sabonis is a great player to help you win now. And evidently the Kings are going to be dumb and try to go for a play-in spot. Like getting a play-in spot really means anything. Like, come on, it does not mean anything. You're gonna play the Warriors or the Suns. You're not gonna beat them. Let's not kid yourselves. Anyway, the Kings lost this, Trevor. They seem like they just keep spinning in circles, and I feel bad for this fan base. You know, we've talked about this off the air. 20 years, Trevor, of just missing 15 years of missing the playoffs, 20 years of just not being good. I mean, it's just brutal. You know, you trade your 21-year-old guard and you keep De'Aaron Fox, who probably has hit close to his ceiling. You know, like maybe he can get a little bit better, but I don't know how much better he can really get. He's been around for a while. You get Sabonis, you might be a play-in team, like maybe with those two guys and Harrison Barnes and Rashawn Holmes. But my goodness, I don't know why you'd mortgage away your future the way they did. Halliburton should have been nearly untradeable in the way that most young players are nearly untradeable of his caliber.
Exactly. Seriously.
I just don't even believe it. I just could not believe that they would trade such a young guy who has such potential, you know, really all-star potential, maybe even more, Trevor, someday. I mean, the guy is really good, and he has potential to be the best guard, best player on a team. So I was shocked at this, Trevor. I was disappointed in the Kings, but again, I guess at the end of the day, I'm not entirely surprised because the Kings seem to always make blunders, you know. It just happens every single year. So I don't know what your thoughts are, but I bet they're pretty similar to mine.
I'm gonna take this back to one of my classes, Ryan. And one of my first assignments in one of my classes this past semester was, you know, what's your mission statement? Where do you see yourself in 40 years? And it's obviously a tough question to answer, but it really requires you to have a sense of direction and have a sense of where you want to go. And that's exactly what the Kings lack. They just don't have a sense of direction, right? It just feels like they're making moves randomly, like this is NBA 2K. And you're playing GM on a video game. I just don't see the direction, right?
Yeah.
You have a nice young core. You have a good set of guards, right? I get you have a logjam of guards in Halliburton, Fox, and Mitchell, but you have a couple of nice win now pieces in Harrison Barnes, and you have a nice couple of young pieces, but then you get rid of the young pieces because you want to win now more. But now there's rumors you want to get rid of Harrison Barnes. This team just doesn't know what they're doing. They're just making moves for the sake of making moves. It's like the Houston Texans in a way. They just have no direction. They have no idea where they want to go. They have no idea who they want to be. They have no idea who they want to build around. And it's just kind of like, they're kind of like hoping they win the lottery on one of these trades, right? They just happen to make a trade and they get lucky that it worked out in their favor. It just doesn't, there's no strategy to this move. And you're right. Why are you dumping a 21-year-old elite shooting, good passing guard who's already contributing at a very high level in this league? And you give away one of your best shooters for a team that doesn't have a lot of shooters, right? De'Aaron Fox can't shoot. Harrison Barnes is an okay shooter, but outside of that, you have no shooting.
Right.
The only thing I could see is that they wanted a big man that was good because they haven't seemed to have a good big man ever.
Yeah.
But
I mean, Sabonis is a good player, right? I mean, he is like a low-end all-star.
But it's like, now what? Are you going to build around Sabonis, or are you going to trade him in 2 years and build around somebody else? I just feel like this team has no idea what they're doing. 20 years of dysfunction. I thought 10 years as a Suns fan was bad, but 20 years as a Kings fan of just straight dysfunction. And it's a great basketball city. They have really good fans. I feel bad. And Ryan, I know you're pretty good friends with the Kings fan. I know he was pretty livid.
Yes.
And what hurts me the most about this deal is, apparently, I don't know if this is true, Tyrese Halliburton was crying when he found out he was being traded from Sacramento. And I was thinking to myself, you're getting out of Sacramento. You should be cheering. And you traded away a young star potential guard who loves being in Sacramento. And that's what hurts me the most in this deal, is that you actually found a guy. Right? The Kings played them. The Kings played themselves. They actually found the guy, but then they traded him away, and they must have had no idea how he felt about the city, how he felt about playing on the team. I don't know. I just think this is such a blunder. And you get a good player in Sabonis, but this roster is, I don't know. I mean, like I said, they have no idea what they're doing.
Yeah, the thing is, and we'll move on from this in a second, but like, how many times can you suck the life out of your team and your fans? Like the fans love Halliburton. They loved him. You can see it. Halliburton loved Sacramento. I mean, just 2 weeks ago, there was a clip I watched of him saying, you know, I know we're not good right now, but I'm going to be part of the solution. I will be here to help turn this team, this city, and the organization around.
And that's
And it's just,
exactly what you'd want to hear.
I just,
The Kings, but
I don't know. Yeah, it seems like you're right. Like just like they're rolling dice. They're like, let's hope we win this trade. Like they have no actual long-term plan, vision for what they want to build. It's disappointing. Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know what to say. I mean, the Pacers won the trade, and it makes me sad for the players that got traded. From like it makes me sad for Halliburton and Hield and for Kings fans because it's just brutal.
mm-hmm.
But Trevor, I wanted to move on to the final trade that we wanted to talk about on this podcast. And I actually have a similar sentiment in this deal as we did with the Sacramento deal. And this is the Portland and New Orleans trade involving CJ McCollum. And McCollum's been around for a long time. And so, it was McCollum, Larry Nance, and Tony Snell to New Orleans for Josh Hart, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who was then just traded the day of the Jazz, Satoransky, a first rounder in 2 seconds. Trevor, looking at this trade, like if I'm being honest, I think the Blazers won it. Like I'm going to be honest with you. It's another one of those moves, Trevor, that to me makes me feel like the Pelicans are just trying to tread water. It's just like the Kings. They're just trying to tread water, maybe make the play in. Like CJ McCollum is he's a third option. He's the third option. He's not a second option now, in my opinion, on an actual contending team. And they gave up a lot for him. Josh Hart's a good young player. He's a really good rebounder, a good defender. He does a lot of things well. He's a decent shooter. Nickeil Alexander-Walker is a very good scorer. He can do it all from all three levels. Maybe not as efficient as you'd want, but he's young and he has the tools in place to be a really good scorer in this league. And you give up those two guys plus a first rounder, and 2 seconds. I feel like that's a lot for a guy in CJ McCollum who's in his 30s. He's a good shooter, but I question how much he can bring to this team. I don't know. I feel like they're just trying to appease Zion, maybe Brandon Ingram, maybe. I don't know. I just feel like it's a move to appease the masses or the players, and I feel like it's not a move that actually helps the team in the long run, which is what the Pelicans should be thinking about. They have two really young stars, really, in Ingram and Zion, and they're getting a 32-year-old in CJ McCollum. I think he's 32, something like that. And it's just like, that doesn't fit your timeline, right? It's just weird. It doesn't match up to me. So I just feel like it's a little out of place. Like putting CJ McCollum on a team like, I don't know, Philly, right? A team that's actually contending now, like Denver, right? Like a team that's contending now that can use him now that really has a real shot at winning series. I just feel like the Pelicans gave up a lot of future capital to get a guy who's going to help them maybe make the plan now and not really help them down the road when they're really going to hopefully be elite.
I partially agree and disagree. And I like the deal for Portland just based on what they're trying to do, right? They're clearly trying to just open up as much cap space as possible. So they got rid of McCollum, who was the big money man that they had left outside of Dame. I guess Nurkic they still have on the roster. They already traded Nickeil Alexander-Walker, which I thought was a little weird. I think they traded him to the Jazz. And I think, didn't they get Joe Ingles in return? Or I forgot who they got in return.
They got Joe Ingles. I think maybe a second rounder. So basically just going for salary.
They might dump Joe Ingles, right? Yeah, yeah, exactly. So good for the Jazz. They got a nice young guard in Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Anyways, back to this deal. Look, I look at this roster now that they've brought in CJ McCollum, right? And they brought in Larry Nance as well, who'll be a decent bench player for this team. I look at the starting five and look, think about the starting five, Ryan. Devontae Graham, CJ McCollum, Zion, Brandon Ingram, and Jonas Valanciunas.
That's a nice five.
And I think that's a playoff starting five. I think that's a starting five where if you get some development from Zion and McCollum continues to play at a high level and Ingram continues to play at a high, that's a team that might even be able to win a playoff series, right? So I think from that aspect, I think the Pelicans did it to expedite the winning process to keep Zion and Brandon Ingram happy. It's kind of like what the Suns did when they brought in Chris Paul. That trade just happened to work wonders.
Sure.
So I don't hate it for the Pelicans. And I think, you talk about that they gave up a lot. They had a lot to give up, right? They had a ton of draft picks from the Anthony Davis deal and a couple of others. So I think they could afford to give up some draft picks. And I think about their bench now, right? They have a couple decent bench pieces. They'll have Larry Nance.
Sure.
They'll have Jackson Hayes, who could be okay. He hasn't been great so far in his NBA career, but he's young. They still have some draft picks from the Anthony Davis deal. So I think this team is a little bit thinner now, but I think they're better now. And for Portland, I think we've already talked about it. Clear salary dump. I don't even know who's left on that roster, if I'm being honest with you.
Yeah, it's a disaster
for the rest of this season. The only thing that I don't like for the Pelicans is I kind of wish for their sake they would have been able to keep Josh Hart, because I agree with you, Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
He's young and he plays good defense. And I feel like that's something they need. I feel like they don't have a lot of.
They don't. You read that starting lineup. There's not much defense there.
There's not much defense there. But I think they have some pieces now. And I think they have a starting five that they can really build around if they can put a bench together. And I got to give my man Willie Green some credit, because this Pelicans team, Ryan, they were like 1-11 to start the year or something.
They were
stupid. They're 22-32, and they are currently in the play-in. Like, they are currently going to have a postseason if the season ended today. So give this team some credit. And Zion Williamson hasn't even suited up for this team yet. So I think with bringing in McCollum, I think if they can get Zion back, it might not pay dividends this year, but I really think this team could be a tough team next year if they can get a little bit of a bench, develop a couple of these young guys.
Yeah, that's fair. I know. I just, for me, I guess a lot of it all comes down to, can Zion play, right?
Which is something.
I mean, it's the ultimate X factor.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Exactly.
And we have no idea, right? We literally have no idea. No one's given us like any updates on it.
And when he plays, he's great, but he doesn't play.
Exactly. He needs to actually play. So I mean, we'll see. Like, if he plays, this team is a low-end playoff team. They could maybe win a series given the right matchup. But I don't know how reliable Zion is right now. I mean, right? Like, he's not even with the team. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know how you're letting a guy.
He's just hurt left and right. I don't understand.
I don't know how you're letting a guy who can't lose weight properly stay away from your team and your training staff. Like, you'd think you'd have your staff working with him every day, really trying to get him to get his weight down, get his foot healthier and whatnot. But
right.
I don't know. We don't know enough about it. But anyway, Trevor, look, like, I think the success of that deal hinges on that, in my opinion. But
right.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's all I really have to say about that. I don't know if, there's anything else you want to add for it, but I'm pretty much
good. I got nothing.
Yeah. Well, look, Trevor, we got the deadline tomorrow. Like I said, the trade deadline. It's going to be exciting. Some more deals we'll definitely talk about in the upcoming podcast next week. But that's all the deals we have for now. That's all the stuff we have for now. I don't know if you have any shout outs you want to give, anything you want to say before we end this podcast. Maybe shout out U of A for a nice win last week. I don't know.
Yeah, actually, I'll give my Wildcats a shout out. 4th in the country, 3 big wins in a row, the LA schools, and then we took the top off at ASU. Shout out my man Benedict Matherin, who's been elite. Dalen Terry from Hillcrest High School right here in Phoenix. I should say right here, but up in Phoenix, Arizona. I don't know. There's some magic with this U of A basketball team, Ryan. I think we can go pretty far this year. We'll see if your SMU Mustangs. Look, all you need to do is March is so unpredictable, Brian. All you need to do is get into the tournament. And anything can happen. You know what I mean?
True.
But your Mustangs got a big game tonight against the Houston Cougars. I was actually going to talk about Houston if we had enough time on this podcast, but we'll save college basketball for the next one.
We will talk about college basketball next week.
But yeah, shout out my U of A Wildcats. I had another shout out, but I completely forgot.
Shout out the Arkansas Razorbacks for upsetting Auburn last night. Yeah. It was a crazy game, overtime. They got the arena, Trevor, up to 110 decibels. I mean, that's like actually deafening in a basketball arena. So credit to them.
That's really loud.
That's very loud. That's really loud. I will say it was a little disrespectful. They did an alley-oop dunk as time expired up by like 5. That's hey, you know what? Fine. That's their championship. Go right ahead. Okay. Anyway.
Exactly. It was. And look, people don't,
they're good.
People don't like that. But look, rivalries, not everybody has to be buddy. Let's have a little bad blood between the teams. I saw Willie Green. I think is his name, or what's his name? Green. What's his first
Wendell
name?
Green.
Wendell Green.
Yes.
Wendell Green get like caught up in the crowd. I thought there was gonna be a fight that will break out. That's the only maybe dangerous thing, but I like the taunting. You need more of that. I'm glad that it happened. That was a huge win for Arkansas. And look, if Auburn sees them in the SEC tournament, which they very well could, Auburn will probably smack them because that Auburn team is really good.
Yeah.
That big man is special. Jabari
Walker
Smith
Kessler
is really good. Yeah. I mean, look, Arkansas had their moment, but be careful when you celebrate too much too early.
True.
Teams will remember that. And I think
was-
Auburn will remember that if they see them again.
I will say I'm excited to talk about March Madness in the upcoming weeks and the upcoming month, Trevor.
Very exciting.
Because I will say Arkansas is a scary team. They're going to be a tough team in
They're
the
good.
tournament. They're legit.
Elite
But look, Trevor,
guards.
so is Auburn, so is U of A. It'll be a fun tournament. It'll be a fun time. I'm excited. And yeah, maybe SMU can beat Houston tonight. I'm hoping against hope that we can pull out the win. I don't know. I don't think we will, but crazier things have happened, Trevor. You're right. But yeah, I think that about does it for this podcast.
Cavaliers -5.5. That's my pick of the day. Book it.
I like that. Cavaliers already losing to start it out, so good pick, Trevor. Good pick. But look, we're gonna wrap this podcast up here. Hope you all enjoyed, and we will be back next week to talk more Super Bowl reactions, NBA trades, and some college basketball.